So welcome back everyone. My name is Hyan Park, an X-HEC Entrepreneurs student as well. And I came here today to introduce you to Tara, Heuzé, Sarmini, an amazing entrepreneurs who will talk about the startup ecosystem from a gender perspective. So just to introduce her briefly, she studied in Sciences Po, Cambridge, and Columbia, which is just one of the best schools in 3 different countries. And Tara started her career as a growth operation manager in Uber. She also created Règles Élémentaires when she was just 21 years old. And Règles Élémentaires is a disruptive NGO leading the fight against period poverty and taboos surrounding menstruation in France and also in Europe. So we're very lucky to have you here, Tara. And thank you so much for coming. So audience, take advantage of this moment and just do not hesitate to ask any questions in the chat. And so dear audience, please welcome Tara. So hello Tara, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you very much, Hyan, and the entire team for organizing this amazing event and having me today.
Sure. Okay, so maybe we can start with some of your little presentation, like what have you done in the past and what are you doing today?
Sure, so maybe you can pull up the slides. Yeah, okay, so my name is Tara. I'm very happy to be here today. We will discuss a couple of things. I'll start by introducing myself, but also then I'll go deep dive into the obstacles that I see in the startup and the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Then I'll give you tools, hopefully some that you can use in your day-to-day and to get yourself going in this field. And finally, I'll share some resources. So to start with a bit about myself, I was born in 1993. I'm currently 27. I was born in a French family with Syrian origins, so a pretty multicultural environment. And I grew up here in Paris and was lucky throughout my studies to live in Russia, the UK, and the US. As Hyan said, I studied at Sciences Po, where I studied political science with a major in economics. Then I studied at Cambridge, where I studied MPhil in finance. And finally, I did a dual degree between Sciences Po and Columbia University, where I focused on energy and environment. And then in terms of career, my slides have disappeared, but basically my entrepreneurship path started pretty early on, actually to start to fund my very expensive studies, because studying in the UK and the US is not necessarily cheap, especially when you come from France, where it is very cheap and very accessible. So I applied to numerous scholarships, and that's when I really started pitching. I started pitching, and I also started my first crowdfunding to make bronzes out of sculptures I made, and then I sold these bronzes to fund part of my studies, and in total this helped me raise almost 100K to fund these different masters. As Hyan said also, I started my career at Uber as a growth operations manager for France, Switzerland, and Austria. And Uber is a great school to get going and with a very entrepreneurial mindset. As a student, I also started Règles Élémentaires. So Règles Élémentaires is the first French charity fighting period poverty, and it started as a student side project. And today it's an internationally recognized NGO that is funded by public and private actors, and we're a team of about 10 permanent people and thousands of volunteers across France and Europe. So it's really great to see how the topic has unfolded and what we were able to do in such a short period of time, because I started it in 2015, so a bit more than 5 years ago. On the side, I also started another venture in the industrial space. So I started a bottle holder, which helped me discover the entire challenges of relocation and supply chains in terms of hardware. So that was also a challenge that I'm pursuing, which is quite interesting. And I'm currently working on something new in the space of impact co-living. And if you want to find out more, feel free to hit me up at the end of this presentation. So next slide, please. Shoot for the moon, even if you miss it, you land in the stars. This is a quote by Oscar Wilde, which is very cliche, but that has really stuck with me since high school. When I applied for my studies, some interviewers told this to me, and I was, okay, like, this is definitely something I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life. And that's also a message I want you all to hear today, because you'll never have anything if you don't try, and you will maximize your chances of doing something great if you do as many things as possible, or as many things as you find interesting. So really don't hesitate, go for it, and that's how you will achieve success and will have a great start in your entrepreneurial journey. So next slide, please. As I mentioned, I'm going to first talk about the obstacles in the field of entrepreneurship, or at least those that I've seen as an entrepreneur myself, and there are far too many for women, unfortunately, but I'll start with the three main obstacles, and you knowing them will help you address them. So next slide. First, there's an enormous lack of visibility, and this translates in many different ways. So first of all, there's a lack of representation. Women are dramatically underrepresented in all forms of leadership and entrepreneurship positions. For those who live in France, you might have heard about this incredible Wikipedia project called Une Femme, so a woman, which really pinpoints the fact that women are systematically referred to through the lens of their gender and not their identity and not their successes and not their achievements. And so this is also where the problem starts. Like, we consider women as women and not as individuals with amazing track records and experiences, and that is a huge problem, one that we still see today. So have a look to this Wikipedia page, and you'll see that when a woman is elected president, we say a woman, and we don't refer to her with her name. So like all these things, and that's part of the problem. Then there's a lack of role models, like it's obviously related to my first point. So the lack of role models, I pinpointed two figures that for me are absolutely shocking. So as of April 2021, there was 0 women in a CEO position in the CAC 40. So the CAC 40 are the 30 biggest companies here in France, and there were only 30 women in a CEO position in the S&P 500, which is less than 6%. And finally, there's a lack of opportunities, because there are women entrepreneurs. There might be fewer than men, but they are there. But for numerous reasons, they have far fewer opportunities to shine and be visible than their male counterparts. So that's linked to the second obstacle. So next slide, please. Why are there far fewer visibility opportunities? That's mainly due to a lack of funding. And like the picture you can see is a picture that came up when I Googled entrepreneurship, and as you can see, for white male. So we can explain this lack of funding with lots and lots of things, but two main factors are what we call the similarity bias. So VC is an industry that is predominantly dominated by white men, and like any human being, they tend to disproportionately fund founders who share similar characteristics. And so the latest US diversity in startup report shows that US VC-backed startups are still significantly male, white and based in Silicon Valley and Ivy educated. So basically you do see a phenomenon of endogamy in the VC world and in the startup world. And this means that like VC funders will go and fund founders that look like them. And that's an issue because, as we've just said, VC is predominantly dominated by white men. Then there's another obstacle, which is the non-founder effect. So because entrepreneurship has historically been considered a men's world, because women didn't have the right to vote, they didn't have the right to work or open a bank account until very recently, as a result, there's a stock effect. There are far more men entrepreneurs out there, and it plays negatively against women because men had more time to acquire experience and build a track record, and as a result, they appear as safer bets for investors. And next slide, please. So this structural gender funding gap is very well shown by the SISTA BCG synonym study that Deborah talked about this morning. So 85% of companies funded in France in 2020 were led by men and represented over 90% of the volume of total funds raised. Next slide, please. And finally, one of the major obstacles for women who want to start an entrepreneurial journey today is a perceived lack of legitimacy. This perceived lack of legitimacy plays both ways, from women's side and from investors' side. So on women's side, there is a lot of self-doubt. So there's a famous HP study published in 2014, but that is unfortunately still true today, which shows that men will apply for a job when they need only 60% of the qualifications, but women will apply only if they meet 100% of these qualifications. So this self-doubt, which we also know by the famous expression imposter syndrome, does prevent lots of women to enter the entrepreneurial space and start their own startups. So I don't want to be misled today. Self-doubt is good. It's very important to challenge yourself and question yourself, but it shouldn't stop you from going out and living your startup journey and daring to start an entrepreneurial path. So self-doubt is good, but it shouldn't be a blocker. And today women are far more inhibited because of this self-doubt than their male counterparts. And another factor of this perceived lack of legitimacy is unfortunately pure sexism. So investors still perceive women-led ventures as riskier business than men-led ventures, which is not true. It is really, really wrong. Like stats show it. Like women have far better return on investments. Women-led companies perform better, but nevertheless, there's this perceived lack of legitimacy, and investors still perceive women as being a riskier bet, and it's absolutely horrendous to see that during the pandemic. So in 2020, when the COVID crisis hit, like there was a huge boom in VC funding actually, but like women's share of the pie shrank to 2.2% in the US, but it's similar globally. It shrank from 2.6, so we were already like very, very low, but it became even worse, and like there's nothing else than pure sexism that explains this. So, so that's really bad, but fortunately, we're here to talk about positive things and how we can challenge that and tackle these issues and obstacles. So next slide, please. So yeah, sorry. First of all, I'd like to go back on this quote of Ruchika Tulsian and Julianne Burry, who say that the answer to overcoming imposter syndrome is not to fix individuals, but to create an environment that fosters a variety of leadership styles. Because far too often, women are presented as victims, as the responsible of an issue. Like a lot of the problems in the startup world and the entrepreneurship world is the ecosystem, which is toxic in many ways, and it's not women who need to like change. It's actually like people around them and investors who need to start acting as they should. So bear in mind that like the issue is mostly from the outside and not on you. Like the burden of proof shouldn't be on women, but it's actually the case today, but it shouldn't be. And like we collectively all have to work to change that. So as a future entrepreneur, you should have that in mind. For people who are not entrepreneurs and who will not be entrepreneurs but will join VC funds or huge companies, it's also important to have that in mind to make sure that you foster an environment that is a safe space for everyone and lets anyone become an entrepreneur. So next slide, please. So Toolkit to Thrive, I will not have time to give you all the tools, but I'll give you those that have been the most useful for me to date. So next slide, please. First of all, confidence. It's easier to say and harder to do. It depends a lot, obviously, in the environment in which you grew up with. Like if you've had a loving family and a supporting family, obviously you get a head start. But confidence is also something you can build. Like fortunately, it's not completely innate. It's something you can build and train. And that's my number one advice for all of you listening today. You need to trust in yourself. You know yourself best, and if you don't trust yourself in executing a project, you can't expect anyone else to do so. And something that I've seen myself, that I've seen with friends, etc., that I've seen with investors, like you need to be 3,000% motivated and sure that you're the best person to do whatever you're going to do. Otherwise, it will be extremely hard for you to get outside support. So another way to do that is really to boast, like others do it and men do it. So there's no reason that you wouldn't. So know your strengths. It's really important to know your strengths, to put them forward, and keep in mind that pitches and business plans are very codified exercises that you must use to shed the best possible light on your project and yourself. Like, I know far too many people who are very like stressed and worried about these exercises and say, well, I'm not really sure how this is going to unfold and in the future, and there might be this, and that. Yes, obviously, you're not a precog, you're not prescient, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you need to show the best case scenario and why there's a potential for your project, for your idea, and really make it obvious that like anyone who hears your pitch or sees your business plan really wants to invest with you. So again, boast, others do it, men do it. It's really important, and it's something that is true for the entrepreneurship world, but also in the corporate world. Like women will get far fewer promotions than men, first of all, because like they don't ask for them. And then even when they do, they're far less confident than their male counterparts. So again, trust yourself. Don't be afraid to boast. And finally, share ideas. Like to gain confidence, it's really important that you talk about your ideas, that you get feedback. Feedback is the most like useful thing you will have whilst developing your project, because like ideas obviously are important, but they're not what matters most. Like everyone has good ideas. Many people have the good ideas, the same good ideas at the same time. And what really is key is execution. So to execute best, you really need to share your ideas with as many people as possible, and your friends, but also like experts in the field. And this leads me to my other pillars. So next slide, please. Build up knowledge. It's really, really, really important for you to be as proactive as possible, and so ask questions, as many as you can, especially as students. It's the best time to do so. And we know stats show that female students tend to be more shy and ask fewer questions than their male counterparts. And like this actually deprives you from precious learning opportunities. Your classmates, your professors are your first allies on your entrepreneurial path, and it's really important to ask as many questions as you feel. Don't be self-conscious. There are no stupid questions, and you actually want to have all these questions answered before you're asked the same questions by your future investors. So really go and ask questions. Learn, be like a sponge, soak as much knowledge as you can. Today, we are lucky to have information accessible on the tap of a finger. Like, it is more accessible than ever. Google and Wikipedia searches are going to be your best friends. As students, again, you've got incredible trove of knowledge with tons of scientific papers available, and you can build sufficient knowledge to be credible on almost any topic in a record time by building this knowledge. And finally, you need to test. Trials and errors are key on the entrepreneurial journey. No one gets it right from the first place. You need to test, you need to try, you need to fail. And like this, you will learn, and then you will repeat the process, and then you might get it right. And something that I've seen amongst my female friends is a lot of them will want to have a perfect product or a perfect pitch or a perfect deck or whatever it is before they start doing anything. But as I say, and as I've been told myself throughout my career, like done is better than perfect. In French, we also say le mieux est l'ennemi du bien. And that's something you really need to keep in mind, because it's really far more important for you to have something and iterate on this thing than just be left with your idea in your mind by yourself. Like, you really need to go out and broadcast your idea and have a product. And it's again, like test is a super important thing, and the best place to start when you decide to become an entrepreneur. Next slide, please. And this will be my final takeaway in terms of pillar and tool to go out and thrive as an entrepreneur. Build up your network. Deborah also said it this morning. It's really important. This event is meant for that as well. Like, it's super important. So reach out to your friends, like, and strangers alike. Cold emails, participation in conferences, invitations on LinkedIn. They're a fabulous tool at our disposal today to meet new people. And more often than not, you'll be surprised to see how accessible these people are. As I said in the intro, I'm currently building a new project in the space of impact co-living. I've sent out tens of cold emails and invitations, and got so many super excited responses, including from top executives on the other side of the world who will take an hour, sometimes two, to speak with me about my project. It's pretty incredible. So really don't hesitate, and that's exactly what I've done before to start my other project. So again, I'm still amazed today at how accessible people are, and myself, I do reply a lot as well for people reaching out, and it is a necessary condition to your success as a founder to talk to as many people, experts in your field, strangers, but also your friends whom you haven't talked to in a while, or this best friend who will read over your deck in the middle of the night. It's really, really important to reach out and be in this proactive networking attitude. Then another essential factor to build up your network is to provoke your luck. It's something that I've found out for myself as well. Opportunities don't fall from the sky. They're created with an open and proactive mindset. If you sit on your couch all day, it will be far harder to meet new people, and to meet those people that will be key and pivotal in your entrepreneurial journey. Yesterday, I was at Orthodox Easter brunch, and I met someone who might be super helpful for my new project. So like it really is about being alert, like having your radar and your antennas open to be able to provoke all these opportunities, and being in a yes attitude, a yes spirit, and a yes mood, and again being proactive. Like this is super super important to build your network and build your opportunities. And finally, pay it forward. It's a very popular expression in the startup world, but it is very true. To build a healthier ecosystem, one where founders are far more representative of our society, we all need to play our part. So obviously, it's the right thing to do to play our part, but it's important to really give a hand when asked, and actually this might open unexpected doors. And this is something I've been doing myself, and that I've benefited from myself a lot, and that really like stuck with me when I was a student in Russia and met this incredible young diplomat who would like read over my motivation letters and my applications for masters, etc., etc. And I kept on saying, well, why are you spending all this time with me? Like, you have a very busy job, and you don't have to do it. Like, why? And she was like, people did it with me before, so I'm paying it forward, and one day you'll do that with other students, with people who will reach out. And this is true. Like, it's really important. It's really important to be able to seize these opportunities of more senior people who've been on the way you're trying to pursue. And it's really important to you yourself be in this giving back spirit, because again, you never know where the next opportunity will come from. So next slide, please. What I tell my friends who ask me how I dare to do this, or how did I manage to secure this, I always say there's nothing to lose and there's everything to gain. Like, I've got so many of my friends who are, oh no, I don't want to write this email because I don't know this person, I'm gonna look stupid, or like, he's such an important person, like he will never care about what I'm doing or whatever. And I'm like, well, a priori, you don't even know this person yet, so like, do you rather they think you're stupid, or they don't know about you at all? Like, obviously you really want them to know about you, and in 99% of the cases, they'll think you're an amazing person, and they'll be really happy to have this email that like changes from their day-to-day routine. And even if you looked stupid or whatever, the reality is this person wasn't in your network first, and you didn't interact with them, so like, you don't care. Like, you really have nothing to lose, everything to gain. And that's how I've been going on from day one as a student on this entrepreneurial journey, like to raise funds, to start new businesses, to start new projects, to start incredible partnerships. Like, really don't hesitate, shoot emails, shoot LinkedIn invites, reach out to this professor for that motivation letter or that recommendation letter. Like, really important. And more often than not, you'll get answers. And again, worst case scenario, you won't hear back. Your email will have gone in the spam email, and that's it. Like, again, nothing to lose, everything to gain. So please keep that in mind, and that's the most important message I want to share today. And before we go into the Q&A, I wanted to share a couple of resources. So to inspire and to be inspired and grow your network, I've said it numerous times, but LinkedIn is super, 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 super useful. Then myself used to use a lot an app called Shaper. Shaper presents itself as the Tinder for networking, so you can meet people with similar interests to you, and it's literally like a dating app, like you swipe right or left. And I've met incredible founders like that, people who've helped me a lot on my path. As mentioned before, your first allies in your network are your teachers, your classmates, participating in conferences, reaching out to alums. Those of us who are listening to us, like, are students, for most of you in grade schools, like there's a huge network of alums you can reach out to, and more often than not, they'll be super happy and eager to help you on your path. To find role models, because that's something I hear a lot about family and friends who keep on saying, well, I don't know if I'm legit to do this or that because no one like me has done it before, etc. There are lots of podcasts that can help on that. Like, as I said before, like, women are traditionally underrepresented in the media and politics, etc. But thanks to this new type of media, there are lots and lots of role models to go and find and be inspired by. So I myself listen a lot to How I Built This with Guy Raz, so an NPR podcast, and Guy Raz interviews lots of successful entrepreneurs, men and women, entrepreneurs of all kinds. He did a special series post-COVID, like not post-COVID because we're still in the middle of it, but post-lockdown, to understand how entrepreneurs have dealt with this unprecedented pandemic. For French speakers, there's also Génération XX. So Siem Djibril started this podcast to interview only inspiring women because she felt that they were underrepresented, and she was right. And so it's a super inspiring podcast where you will find out about the entrepreneurial journey of many, many inspiring women. And Pauline Ligneux started Le Gratin as well, which is also interviewing very interesting and inspiring entrepreneurs. And finally, again, to stress the fact that women are not the problem and that it's the ecosystem we're in that we need to fix, I strongly advise that you read these two essays. So Biased by Jennifer Eberhardt, who is a neuroscientist at MIT and investigates cognitive biases. And for those who speak French, Le Genre du Capital of Céline Bessière and Sybille Golac, researchers at the CNRS and Paris Dauphine, who do show that there's a structural imbalance in terms of revenue sharing, obviously, but also in terms of capital. And so that will give you a better prospect on the ecosystem today, the environment, and also, like, this will give you more arguments when you go and pitch to investors and let them know that like you are obviously aware of what's going on and it's important for everyone to fix it. And so having these stats will be super useful. And this is obviously a non-exhaustive list of resources, but I'm sure, like, you can find inspiration and useful things in those. So hopefully that helps. So thank you very much for listening, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Tara. As a future to-be entrepreneur, it was very inspirational talk for me. And I really hope that the audience actually felt the same, that this is very important. All the toolkits that Tara gave us is very useful. And I hope that also the beginning presentation was actually helpful for you to understand what is the startup ecosystem is going on, like, in gender perspective. So we actually have a lot of questions. So maybe we can start with the questions saying that, could you please tell us more about Règles Élémentaires? Sure. And your journey against menstrual precarity in France? How did you manage to put this important topic in front of the scene?
Cool, with pleasure. So in 2015, I was a student in the MPhil in finance at Cambridge, and student organization reached out to me and my fellow classmates to say they were organizing a sanitary product collection campaign for homeless women in Cambridge. And that came as a shock because I was, like, I didn't realize this was an issue in the UK. And then I also was, well, I actually didn't ever think about how these women on the street deal with their periods. So back then I gave a couple of products, but more importantly, it stuck in my head because I was, why haven't I ever heard of that in France? Like, isn't it an issue on the other side of the channel? Is it already tackled, or is it just because there's an enormous taboo on the subject? So I started talking about it to my family and friends. Everyone had the same reaction. Yeah, we never thought about it. It's probably taken care of. And so I decided to talk about it to health professionals, to gynecologists, to midwives, etc., to nurses, and then the answer was the same, was, well, yeah, we never thought about it. It's probably taken care of. And then eventually I decided to reach out to the organizations that fight poverty here in France, the leading medical and social organizations that fight poverty. So le SAMU Social de Paris and lots of homeless shelters. And all of them were, no, actually, it's an enormous problem. The needs are absolutely horrendous, and we have zero stocks because it's such a taboo topic that even our partners that do produce and manufacture these types of products will not give them to us because, like, they don't want to talk about it, and all their CSR efforts are in Africa or in Southeast Asia. So as I joke today, it's there's a famous song in French that goes "La misère est moins pénible au soleil," and back then no one wanted to see that there was an issue of period poverty at your doorstep, basically. So I started on a side table at Sciences Po in the main hall by organizing a collection campaign, and timing was fortunate. It wasn't planned, but actually it was the 1 week before my exams where I could organize it, and it was also the week during which the bill proposal on reducing the VAT level on these products was examined for the second time, because during the first lecture, basically senators thought these products were in first necessity products, and so they should keep a 20% VAT rate, and then there was a huge outcry, and then eventually the second lecture, the VAT rate was lowered to 5.5%, like all first necessity products. And so this had really made the French people, French society aware of the prices of these products. And so when I started this collection campaign, we received donations from the entire country and even from abroad, and huge media coverage. So the timing was really important. And then very early on, we adopted a platform model because we realized we wouldn't be able to organize all the collections campaigns ourselves. So we really adopted a decentralized platform model where anyone could organize a collection campaign in our name by accepting terms and conditions. And this enabled us to spread throughout France and Europe super quickly. And as I say, it's together that we can make change happen. And this was really a grassroots effort, student-led, lots of people, thousands of volunteers coming together. And that brought the topic to the political agenda. We started in 2015, and in 2018, senators reached out saying, oh, we're doing a report on period poverty and the taboo surrounding period. Could we interview you? And I was, yeah, sure. And then it was the National Assembly, and then it was the Ministry of Health, and then it was Macron in December talking about it live on Brut. So it was really a grassroots effort, and as I say, drops of water make oceans. So that's the story.
That's very amazing. I'm genuinely surprised. Such a success story at such a young age. And maybe we can move on to the next questions. How can we promote entrepreneurship to women in less privileged environment, which is a very important subject, and how to boost confidence when you live in an environment that doesn't really inspire it?
These are tough questions. Again, I think that today we've got amazing tools at our disposal. So the internet and the fabulous world of podcasts and new media is a great way to find inspiration and to find support, because by listening to all these entrepreneurs who share their stories, you will see that you're not alone. You're not alone in the challenges you confront. You're not alone maybe in not being supported by your family, etc. Then obviously some people have a harder path to entrepreneurship, because like typically I was able to start Règles Élémentaires because I wasn't working on the side as a student. Someone else who might have been working might not have the energy or the time to do it. So I'm very aware of my privileges. But nevertheless, today there are more tools than ever to be able to start a project and start a journey, and then again reach out to as many people as you think might be of help, because there are obviously institutions, there are lots of funding available, there's the French Tech Tremplin, there are lots of things like that. But again, people are key in the process, and you might find an ally through a charity, an NGO, through Girls in Tech, through whatever it is. But yeah, reach out is my number one advice. And then yeah, building confidence is hard. It's not easy. It's like training a muscle. Like it's harder at the beginning. It gets easier as soon as you've got a bit more of experience and a track record. But I'll say that maybe turn to your friends, and like friends are the family you choose, and they're the one who will be able to cheer you up when maybe you're not supported by your family or your direct immediate environment. And again, like trust in yourself and go for it. And worst case scenario, you'll fail and you will have learned tons of things, and you'll start over again, and you will be more credible next time. So really go for it, and done is better than perfect.
Okay, so to sum up, maybe like exploit all of the toolkits that you just mentioned, and also always just to reach out, even though you feel less confidence, you're not going to lose anything. Yeah. So it could be a good summary of that. Yeah. Maybe since the time is running, like we can have like one last question. Okay. Do you feel that being a young entrepreneur has made it difficult for you sometimes in terms of credibility or legitimacy?
Yeah, definitely. Age is also another obstacle. It is an obstacle at different levels. Like lots of incumbents in the sector, or typically, in my case, other like charity leaders of bigger organizations were very condescending with me, saying, "Oh, she's just a like youngster. She hasn't even finished her studies. Like we don't care about her." And then it's also harder to manage a team, and you need a team to successfully build your entrepreneurial journey. You need people with you. You need people who will follow you and that you will inspire and who will be able to support your project. And as a young person, as someone younger than most people on my team, it's been sometimes really hard to get credibility, to be respected, to be listened to, etc. And to solve these issues, again, find allies, and things have been much easier for me since I've decided to create a board. So we now have an external. We basically have a board with external board members, so senior respected leaders in their field who will back me up and will be my best allies, and so that's really important. And again, like not everyone has a board directly, but it still comes down to the point of like finding your allies and finding your sponsors, and that's something that the previous speaker said really well. Like women are often mentored, they're not enough sponsored, and you need to find sponsors. You need to find people who will vouch for you and who can defend you if needed.
Okay, thank you very much. As a future entrepreneur, I will definitely use your advice. I hope it was a good session, like great talk, great conference. Thank you very much, Tara, for being here and all the inspirational talk. And now we're going to have a break time, so stay with us and come back at 11:30 because we have an amazing discussion panel about how to integrate gender equality in your business with incredible guests, namely Jean-Louis, a diversity partner at IBM, Laetitia, a director at Cadre Noir, Emmanuel, a CEO at Social Builder, and Marie-Claire, of CEO at Women in Games. So the discussion will be guided by Karishma. So stay tuned and I'll see you at 11:30. Thank you very much.